Let's go over to the ISP and see if there's spooky locations. Don't know what the ISP is? I want you to try to spell out and sound out Mississippi. Let's go to the other side. Welcome back to the other side with me, your host, ASOS. First order of business, as always, if you're new, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, follow my social medias. If you're returning, hi, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate you so much. Still, like the video, share it, do comment below, follow my social medias. We do have a Spotify version of this, so if you don't want to just see me and you just want to be able to listen to it in your car, you guys are more than welcome to. If you are listening over on Spotify, hello. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the Spotify version of this. If you guys are listening on Spotify, make sure you rate it. If you need to find my social medias, all my social medias are the other side, and you should be able to see the logo and everything like that over on social media. Now, I know last week we had said that we would go on this asylum journey. However, I do want to spread it out a little bit because I don't want to do what I have done in the past with my content where, I'm like, let's just do like a full tour of the United States, and every single week I was going to new states and new cities and trying to find locations there. I feel like I really want to spread out the asylum journey, and maybe one week we talk about a haunted asylum, and then the next week we do something else, just so that way the content does feel fresh for me, it feels fresh for you guys, we're not doing the same thing over and over again. So when I was thinking in my head, well, what do I want to do for next week, I really, like I said, I just didn't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Even though I said we were going to go on a journey, we still will, but I was thinking about what states are very not so popular, and maybe a lot of people, when they think of like really popular haunted locations, do they not think about, and Mississippi was one of them. I just kind of sat there and thought about Mississippi, and I was like, do a lot of people understand Mississippi, and do a lot of people understand like Southern history, and how I feel like when you dive into the history of the South and of Southern states, I feel like you go on like a deep dive of like all sorts of history. Of course, there's plenty of Civil War history in there, but there's also history of when it became a state before it was a state. It also has the history of the Jim Crow laws, that era as well. It has the history of pushing out indigenous people in their states. So even though a lot of people may not instantly think of a very famous haunted location, it's a very rich history oriented area. Like when I went out to Memphis, Tennessee, that was rich history. There was a lot of history that I didn't even realize that was missing. So, you know me, I like spooky stuff, I like kooky stuff, but I also really like a lot of history, and I love when a haunted location has such deep, rich history to explain and back up the spirits that are there. Because in order to understand who resides in the home, you have to understand the history behind it, which again is my love and my fascination for this. So I was like, well, let me go to Mississippi, right? Let's think about what haunted places are in there. And I found this one where it states, this city has a long history of war. This home is located on 1445 Harrison Street. What am I talking about? The McRaven House. Now, this is a time capsule of the South. The first portion of the house was built in 1797 while George Washington was president. Now, this was even before Mississippi was even a state. So if you want to talk about old, it's very, very old. Like it was around before the state was even a state. And it has lots of portions that were built throughout the years. But the main foundation is the oldest part of the home, right? So just to give you some more facts so that we can put into perspective how old this place is, Mississippi was the 20th state to become a state on December 10th, 1817. George Washington was the first U.S. president on April 30th, 1789. If you really think about this location to date, when I looked this up in 2026, it is 229 years old. I know it's just super crazy. Now, like I said, this one was built in portions. One portion was built by a highwayman named Andrew Glass. It was a two-room brick structure with a bedroom above the kitchen and a removable ladder to prevent ambushes while you sleep. Now, it's an interesting fact to have the ladder be removable to protect it because, again, this was before it was a state. Attacks were very common and there was no protection besides your own. When you have to think about like the frontier and what America was like before it was a full union, before it was a full state, a lot of these areas that they were building into would be notorious for attacks, and not just by indigenous people. It was also being attacked by other countries that were coming in to colonize. So if the French saw you and the French was like, no, 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 I'm claiming this land, most likely they would go and they would attack you. Spaniards, the same thing. I mean, sometimes they would be really welcoming, but we've had the Mexican American War, we've had the French and Indian War, and all of those were all on territorial disputes within the new colony. So you never knew what was out there. It was really the wild, wild west, but it was the wild south at the time. Protection was really everything. So I just really find it interesting that he had that removable ladder and he found ways to keep himself safe in an area that really lacked any laws and any kind of regulations. Now, the second portion of the McRaven's home was built in 1836 by Sheriff Stephen Howard. He enclosed a patio, created a stairwell, added a bedroom, a dining room, and two-story covered porch. This era was the Empire period, marked by simple yet decorative touches. Now, the third portion of the house was built in the Greek Revival style by John H. Bobb in 1849. A prominent brick manufacturer and sawmill owner, Mr. Bobb built an elegant parlor, master bedroom, men's changing area, flying stairwells, a Greek Revival facade, which was later replaced by a Italian facade with a Vicksburg pillars. Now, the home also welcomed wounded soldiers. When it was sold to Mr. Bobb, he had not only built up this third portion of the home, but he also had turned it into a field hospital during the Civil War. The home was located close to the battles raging throughout the city, so the home did encounter cannons of its own. Now, it's additionally believed not only did he have his home be a hospital. But there's also a grave that is rumored to be 50 feet away from home. Now, I want to specify that it is believed, it is not 100% confirmed, but they do believe that a mass grave is only 50 feet away from the home. And again, it makes sense because it was a hospital throughout the South and throughout these states where the Civil War raged. There's a lot of unmarked graves known throughout there, a lot of death and a lot of sadness throughout there. After Mr. Bobb had died from angry Union troops in 1864, the home changed owners to William Murphy and his family. They too would die in the home, and the home remained within the family until 1960. They owned the home for over 96 years. That's a fleet, if you ask me. So they kept that home in the family for 96 years. The last to own the home was two daughters of the family, and they had allowed the home to become overgrown and dilapidated. I was seeing some photos, and I do think that, the people taking care of it today maybe should fix up some of the walls because I saw some paint falling off of it. So the last people to own the home before 2015 really allowed this beautiful home to just kind of become not very livable in. But thankfully, it is owned today by Dr. and Mrs. Reeds, who bought the home in 2015, and they opened it up to the public, and they do now ghost tours, they do overnight stays, so people can definitely go check out the home and enjoy the historical marker that it is for today, but also to enjoy the ghosts. Now, who haunts this place? Now, one of the people who lived in the home was Sheriff Howard. He had lost his wife Elizabeth in 1836 after childbirth, and it was believed that she is the most active spirit in the home. She is believed to greet guests, and she also likes to play pranks on guests. Now, Andrew Glass, who built a portion of the home as a hideaway, he would rob people on the Natchez Trace, and the room that he built, he still haunts today, and it's also still untouched to this day from how he originally had it. So they did keep it to how it was when he originally lived there, which I think is a smart way to keep his ghost around. And also, I do want to go back to the story on him about how he robbed people and he removed that ladder for protection. I'm pretty sure that not only was he afraid of attacks, but he's also afraid that people who robbed him would come back, which is a fun fact. William Murphy and his two daughters hold on to the house as well, and they are spotted around the property. John Bobb, who built the Grand Greek Parlor and Master Suite of the McRaven House, survived the siege but was later killed by Union soldiers. He's also believed to be haunting the place as well. Now, there is a story from CNN about an employee who was working on the 4th of July who saw a man heading towards the front doors of the home. The man was dressed more formally. She walked to open the doors but then realized no one was coming. While she was waiting for the man to reappear, she realized something eerily familiar about his attire and distinct hairstyle. Then the date clicked in her mind. It was the same day as 1863 when Confederate forces surrendered to the Union Army, ending a grisly 43-day siege. And it was also the same day that the previous owner, John H. Bobb, was murdered. Bailey had stated that she was about to freak out because looking at the portrait of him, the same swoosh in the hair as the person walking outside. This was her first ghost interaction. So she had barely realized, oh my god, I'm seeing one of the former owners. Like, it didn't click in her head because when the person was coming up, they were coming up through the bushes, and so she could only see them from a distance as they were walking up. But as she was looking at the person, she was like, huh, that person is wearing attire that is not normal for tourists. It's very formal. It's very not like the time period that we're in. And as she sees them walking up, she also starts noticing little things about his features. She goes, this man that's walking up is really strange, right? She's waiting. He disappeared. And as he disappears and as she's waiting and realizes nobody's coming, and she doesn't need to greet anybody, and she went to go look at a portrait of Mr. Bobb, and she went, oh my god, that is the same person that I saw outside, and all of it like clicked in her head, and she's never seen a ghost before, so she was like really in shock. I think that when you see a full body apparition, it can be really shocking at first because you're like, am I really seeing that? Is that real? Is that not real? And it is a very hard thing to process when you first see it. So her story was interesting, but she has plenty of stories within the home as well as a staff member working there. Now, there's another story from a guest who traveled into the McRaven home. William had been visiting for the second time, but it was the couple's first time together in the home. William had admitted that he thought that it was a tourist trap because it's a house set in the woods. It's an odd feeling, and either way, and I do agree with him. The location for the house is very perfect because it is very eerie to see just a little house out there in the woods. Now, this was his first time going with his wife, Cassie, and he was like, I've been to the home before. It's my second time here. Let's just see how it is. It's a historical landmark. But his opinion had changed when he was upstairs in Mary Elizabeth Howard's room, where he saw the dresser drawers opening and closing on its own. Now, his wife also had an experience of herself. She was in Andrew Glass's room where someone had brushed her hair. She was with her son, and when she realized that her son could not have touched her hair because she wasn't holding him, he wasn't even anywhere near her, she had brought it up to a staff member. And a staff member says, yes, Mr. Glass is very attracted to women. He often goes for women and he will touch them. They even stated that they had their own experience of their ankles being grabbed and somebody like brushing up against their cheek. Those are some stories that were from CNN. Now there is some Google reviews, which I'm like, oh my god, I love Google reviews, which is always a good time and always fun when there's Google reviews. Now this home has 4.6 stars. Now this one is an interesting one that I was reading, which came from Candace. She was there about 4 months ago. She said she doesn't know where to begin. Her husband and her booked an 8:30 haunted tour and really enjoyed herself. She said that the property is beautiful, the home was impeccable, all the spooky ghost stories you heard are correct. For myself, the creepiest room was definitely Billy's. I started to feel a heaviness in my chest. Then a knife-like constant stabbing in my heart, followed by seeing a shadow in the corner of the room. I had stepped out to sit on the stairs. I saw that shadow again and went down the stairs, leaving our small group. The guides we had were amazing, very knowledgeable, over the top. I do wish I could have seen more of the grounds, but it was dark outside. We also seemed to skip over the kitchen area. We only viewed one room of the home. So she talks about how she's getting this deep feeling in her chest, the stabbing feeling. She's seeing spirit. She has to move away. And then she goes into like other things. And I'm like, lady, that review is something right there. Okay. Talking about a very serious, just like, were you okay? Candace, were you okay? That's what I want to know. Uh, I do want to know if you guys have visited this home before and if you guys have your own experience. I do want to know if you guys have heard any stories. What's your opinion of this place? Have you ever been to Mississippi? Is there any other haunted locations in Mississippi? I will see you guys next week, and maybe we'll go to a haunted asylum next week. But this was the other side of the ISB, where we went to McRaven's home. I do strongly believe that the home is haunted because of its deep rooted history and ties to the Civil War. And I do think that so many people experience things that there has to be proof out there. But I always, always want your guys' opinions. Don't be shy to talk to me. I will see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to follow all along on everything. And I will see you later. Bye.